Alright, this LeetCode question is called Roman to integer. It says Roman numerals are represented by 7 different symbols: I, V, X, L, C, D, and M. And then it shows a mapping of those. Then it says, for example, 2 is written as II in Roman numerals, just 2 ones added together. 12 is written as XII, which is simply X plus II. The number 27 is written as XXVII, which is XX plus V plus II. Roman numerals are usually written largest to smallest from left to right. However, the numeral for 4 is not III. Instead, the number 4 is written as IV. Because the 1 is before the 5, we subtract it, making 4. The same principle applies to the number 9, which is written as IX. There are 6 instances where subtraction is used. I can be placed before V and before X, which would make 4 and 9. X can be placed before L and C, which would make 40 and 90. And C can be placed before D and M, which would make 400 and 900. Given a Roman numeral, convert it to an integer. Input is guaranteed to be within the range from 1 to 3,999. Okay, example 1, input is III, and that gives us 3. We just add those 3 together. Example 2 is IV. The output is 4 because we subtract 1 from 5. Example 3 is IX because we subtract 1 from 10. Example 4, LVII is 58 because we just add all those together. 50 plus 5 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. And finally, MCMXCIV is 1994 because we have 1000 plus 900 plus 90 plus 4. All right. I know that was a lot of information, but there are actually only a couple things we need to know. First, we need to know what each Roman numeral maps to. All right, so in this case, V would map to 5, and I would map to 1, and of course the second I also maps to 1. All right, so we just add all the numbers up. We would have 5 plus 1 plus 1. That equals 7. The problem happens when the number on the right is greater than the number on the left. In this case, the number on the left is 1, and the number on the right is 5. All we have to do here is find the difference between the two. The difference between these is 4. Let's try that with a bigger example. All right, let's say we have the number MCMXCIV. What we need to do is look at 2 different elements at once. So this will be our current element, and this will be our next element. Let me grab the mapping. Okay, so which one is bigger, the element on the left or the element on the right? 1000 is bigger than 100, so all we're going to do is add this one element to our total. So right now, the total is 1000. Notice that the only thing we've added out of these 2 numbers is the number on the left. So since we've only added the number on the left to our total, we still need to consider the number that was on the right, the letter C. Now we do the same comparison. Is the number on the left greater or the number on the right? The number on the right is greater. So in this case, what we have to do is we have to look at these 2 numbers as a whole. We subtract C from M, so we're taking 100 away from 1000, which would give us 900. So we add the difference between those 2 to the total. This is where this differs from what we just did. What we just did was, when the number on the left was greater than the number on the right, we only added the number on the left to the total. And because of that, the number that was to the right of it was still considered in the next iteration. In this case, because the number on the left was smaller than the number on the right, we've already factored both of those into the total. So now the next number we're going to consider can't be m because we've already added that to the total. It now has to be x, and the number to the right of that is c. So we'll ask the same question. Is the number on the left greater than or equal to the number on the right? No, it's not, because 10 is less than 100. So again, we'll factor both of these into the total. C is 100, so we subtract 10 from it. That'll leave us 90. Add that to the total. And again, since we've already factored both of those into the total, we have to move our pointers 2 elements down. All right, so final time, which one's greater, the number on the left or the number on the right? It's the number on the right. So again, we factor both of these into the total. I maps to 1 and v maps to 5. What is 5 minus 1? It's 4. So we just add that to the total, leaving us a grand total of 1,994. All right, so let's get to the code. What LeetCode has given us is a function called Roman to int, which accepts a parameter s, and s is just the Roman numeral they want us to translate into an integer. The example I'm going to use is the number mcmxcvi. The first thing we should do is create a map to map every Roman numeral to an integer. So we'll say let Roman to int equal some kind of a map. In this case, it'll be an object. If we look over to the left, that'll look like this. All right, we also need a way to keep track of our total. So we'll say let total equal 0. And then we need to loop over every character in our Roman numeral. So for let I equal 0, I is less than s.length, I++, so a pretty standard for loop. Then we need to capture our current integer and the next integer. So we'll say let current int equal, and for this we'll use our map. So Roman to int s.character at I. All that's saying is look at the character we're on, which at this point would be the letter M. That'll be current. Pass that through our map down here and give me the int it corresponds to. In this case, it'll be 1,000. Now we do the same thing for the next int. Let next int equal Roman to int s.character at I+1. We're still in the first iteration of the for loop, so I equals 0. I+1 is 1, so it's saying look at the character at the first index, which is c. That'll be the next integer. Run it through the map and give me the integer that it corresponds to. In this case, it'll be 100. All right, now we have to see if our current integer is greater than or equal to our next integer. If it is, we can just add the current integer to our total. So we'll say if current int is greater than or equal to our next int, which in this case it is, we'll just add the current int to our total. The current int is the letter M, so our total so far is 1,000. I just noticed that I'm calling current and it should be current int. Let me fix that. Okay, so we've taken care of our first case where our current integer is greater than the next integer. So we'll just shift these references to the right. So current integer is now c, and the next integer is now m. So we'll go back to our if statement on line 22. Is current integer greater than or equal to the next integer? In this case, it's not, so we need an else statement. Remember, in this case, where the next integer is greater than our current integer, we have to add the total value for both of these Roman numerals to our total. What's the total value of these two? It's next int, which is the letter m, so that's 1,000, minus current int. Current int is 100. What's 1,000 minus 100? It's 900. So our total now would become 1,000 plus 900, which is 1,900. How would that look in code? We'd say total plus equals, so total equals total plus the next integer, which remember I already said is the letter m, which is 1,000, minus the current integer, which is the letter c, which is 100. But we're not done with this else statement yet. Since we've already taken both of these Roman numerals into account, we now have to increase our index by 1. So we'll say I plus plus. That would look like this. We'll shift this over 1. But we're actually still inside of the for loop. What happens when the next for loop starts is it'll shift us 1 more over here, which is exactly what we want because we already just looked at these two and added them to our total. All right, so now that we're inside of our for loop, we already captured current and next. They're x and c. So we'll go to line 22. Is our current int greater than or equal to our next int? No, because x maps to 10 and c maps to 100. So because it's not greater than or equal to, it'll go into the else statement. So now again, it'll add the difference between these two to our total. The difference between 100 and 10 is 90, so our total would now be 1,990. And again, it will increment our current and next by 1, and then the next for loop would start. So that would naturally move them up 1, which would put us on v and I. And it'll check again. Is our current greater than or equal to next? Yes, because v maps to 5 and I maps to 1. So it'll go into our if statement on line 22, and it'll add the current only, which is 5, to our total. That would give us 1,995. So now the next for loop starts, and current and next are incremented by 1 again. Now we see something strange. Next is pointing to nothing. How would we compare next when it's nothing to current? We don't have any if statements that cover this. So at this point, we would just add the final number, which is 1, because I maps to 1, to our total. So 1995 becomes 1996. How would we represent that in the code? We'll just come up above this if statement and say we'll only do the steps below if there is a next integer. Otherwise, if there is no next integer, like in the case we're seeing now, we'll just add whatever our current is to the total. All right, so now that we've looped over every Roman numeral and added them up, all we have left to do is to return our total. All right, let's run the code. Looks good. Let's submit. All right, so our solution was faster than about 76% of other JavaScript submissions. As usual, the code and written explanation are linked down below. If you like the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out a lot. See you next time.